Let me bring in Albert Breer. He is the senior NFL reporter, lead content strategist, the Monday morning quarterback, and he has been with us all season long. A nice round of applause for Albert Breer. Albert, come on in.
He kind of paused his
walking.
Yeah,
he did. No, he was kind of soaking in the spotlight there. I get it. No, I got it. No, go ahead.
I'm just glad
we couldn't get Schefter. We couldn't get Glazer. We have Albert Breer, everybody.
That works. It works.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I could stand in for those guys. I'm glad you made it, too.
Thank you. It was a grueling experience.
Listening
Listening to people asking what the drink choice is.
Do you want to ask the poll question, Albert, there, Fritzy?
I can.
Okay. Do you have it?
I do have it. I just have like a lot of screens, so I have to click the one that is the Pro Bowl is a fun, lighthearted exhibition, or lame and unwatchable is our poll question.
I think it's somewhere in between because I think it's being positioned as something more than like a fun exhibition. Like I don't think the NFL should put up any pretense that this is a real game. Yeah. Like I saw the official account tweeting like, "Oh, look, like they're really playing defense out here." It's like, no, they aren't. Like, no, don't try to fool us. This isn't a real game. You know, if I'm them, and you know, I like the way it used to be when it was in Hawaii, and I think that they should really lean into. Like, you ever hear the stories about Peyton Manning at the Pro Bowl? So, like, Peyton Manning treated this almost like it was a convention for star players, and the stories about him like sitting around the pool in Hawaii, like so many guys like took something from that, right? Like he was like the mayor of the Pro Bowl. And because it was in Hawaii and it was hard to get to, you didn't have all these ancillary events. Like they did like the skills competition and that sort of stuff, but it didn't turn into this big circus. And I think like the NFL actually got some benefit from that because star players were getting to learn from Peyton Manning as they were coming up. Like, hey, here are some things that I need to take into account as I go forward in my career. And so I think that like if I was in charge, I'd say we make money off of everything else. Let's turn this into a showcase for our star players, a convention for our star players. I think Peyton Manning had it right. And then Peyton Manning retires, they move it out of Hawaii, and now I just think it's sort of become what it is.
Yeah, but when does the official or the officials decide this is going to be two-hand touch? Because they're changing the rules mid-game.
Yeah, I mean I think the players have an agreement with each other. We're going to take care of each other out here, and I think the officials are in on that too. So, I mean, I can't tell you that I watched the whole thing yesterday because I didn't. I was flying, but I do think that there's an agreement between the players that there's not going to be any heroes out here. Like, let's just all get out of this healthy, have some fun, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I think players are way more conscious now too than they were 10 or 15 years ago of like how their body is an asset. Like you're not going to see Sean Taylor laying out a punter. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to see that sort of play in the Pro Bowl anymore.
The Miami Dolphins found their head coach. Yep. Tell us more about him.
The one thing you want to know about Mike McDaniel is like the people who have been around him and that group of young coaches, your McVays, Mike and Matt LaFleur, all those guys. I don't think I'm talking out of school, Dan, when I say they regard him as the smartest of all of them, maybe including Kyle, including Sean. And I think the proof is that if you look at Kyle Shanahan, he's got this group of coaches that sort of travel with him from place to place. There is only one that has gone with him from Houston to Washington to Cleveland to Atlanta to San Francisco. That's been with him every place. And that's Mike McDaniel. And the reason why is he's sort of the other side of Kyle's brain. And it's even to the point where, you know, my understanding the last few years in San Francisco, he had that run game coordinator title, right? And like he'd basically be locked away Monday and Tuesday. You take care of the run game. I trust you with all of that. And Kyle would go off with other assistants and work on the passing game. So this is the guy who Kyle Shanahan trusted most. I think the question is going to be like whether or not he can be the front of the room leader. But I do think he's grown in that area too, where he's so comfortable in his own skin that he doesn't need to get up there and be like Mike Vrabel. You know what I mean?
I also wonder, though, when it felt like when Brian Flores was being fired that you were going to fire him to hire Jim Harbaugh.
Right.
Normally you fire somebody, you have somebody in the on-deck circle. Yeah. But I don't know what happened because Stephen Ross, even though we've talked about it, hey, I don't want to take him from my alma mater.
Right.
But if Minnesota is going to take him from your alma mater, why don't you take him for your own football team in South Florida?
And I thought that was the weird thing about last week. Like, I think if he had an offer from Minnesota, the possibility existed that he would go to them and say, well, you know what? now you're not taking me from Michigan anymore. Now you're taking me from Minnesota. Because I do think Jim Harbaugh had and has had a desire to get in the NFL. This didn't just start this year either. Yeah. I mean, last year when Michigan put him in that position where they were going to force him to take the pay cut, he sniffed around the Jets, he sniffed around the Chargers. Every team that had an opening had gotten some level of feelers from Jim Harbaugh, like, would you be interested in bringing me in? So he had shown that desire to get to the NFL. I also think there's an element of this. He wanted Michigan to sweat. You know what I mean? Like, there's no one that holds a grudge like Jim Harbaugh holds a grudge. And, he acted.
But is the grudge because they cut his pay?
Yeah, but he held a grudge with the people that made him take the pay cut. And I think for him, like, he didn't say anything, but he filed that away. And I'm not saying it's the motivation for him doing what he did over the last month, but I think it's one heck of a side benefit for him that, like, those people that put him through that last year that made him take that pay cut. And I don't think it's about the money; it's a pride thing. Yeah. You know, making me you're gonna embarrass me that way. My alma mater is going to embarrass me that way, and maybe he deserved it. But like the way that he calculated it was, like, you put me in this position, you publicly embarrassed me. I brought you to the playoff. Now I'm going to make you feel it a little bit.
Didn't he publicly embarrass them the way Michigan played against Ohio State? I mean, I was in Columbus a couple of years ago when they could have put up 70 points on Michigan. Right. So I guess you could say you kind of put us in this position. Now, would I have cut his pay in half? No.
Yeah.
Because knowing Harbaugh's personality, I don't want to embarrass him unless, now he's reinvigorated, like I'll show you, and then they had this unbelievable year. But I don't believe when he says, hey, this is it. I flirted one time with somebody until that next offer. The Texans, it looks like, are going to promote Lovie Smith. What is going on here?
I think that there was, a real desire to look at Josh McCown as the next head coach.
And he has no experience.
And I think they understand the optics of it, too. And I think that my question is, so there were some real serious game management issues. And like, I think one thing people get wrong about the Patriots people is thinking like it's all about control, and it's not. I think with the Patriots people, what happens when they get matched with people from other programs, their standard is way up here. And when that standard isn't met, it frustrates them. It angers them. And I think there were some things that slipped last year from a detail standpoint in game where Nick Caserio made the decision, I can't go forward with David Culley as my head coach. And I understand that. Why are you hiring as defensive coordinator then? Like, that's the thing. And I think a huge part of this wound up being optics. So, like, you've eliminated everybody but 3 candidates. You called Jonathan Gannon on Saturday. Caserio called Gannon on Saturday, told him he's out. Now you're down to Josh McCown and Brian Flores. And can you hire Brian Flores when he's suing the league? I'd argue it'd be a bold move, and they should have tried to do that. I think that they could they should turn around and maybe look at a Gerard Mayo who understands the program. It just feels like they're doing something that maybe is the safe thing right now, which, who's to say we're not going to be back here a year from now?
That's true. Albert Breer, the Monday morning quarterback, joining us here in our L.A. studios. We stand on the precipice of having more African Americans on the United States Supreme Court than as head coaches in the National Football League. That's Dr. Harry Edwards, civil rights activist, telling that to the New York Times. The Saints, is Eric Bieniemy going to get a job?
No, I don't think in this cycle.
What are we missing here?
So, I don't think it's that uncommon. We've seen it before. Like Pete Carmichael, the offensive coordinator of the Saints, a really good coach. Like, just NFL teams didn't project him to be a head coach. And he's been the offensive coordinator for some really good offenses in New Orleans for the last 12 years? Yeah. And so sometimes this happens. And, I think, like, people pinning all of the, like, using, like, Eric Bieniemy, who I think is a good coach, like, using him to kind of explain everything that's wrong with the system, I think has made it so it's a little harder for teams to look past that and go, why aren't we looking at Gerard Mayo? Why aren't we looking at D'Amico Ryans? Why aren't we looking at Leslie Frazier? Why aren't we? There are a lot of good candidates out there, and I think focusing too much on one guy sort of exacerbates the problem, because now it's like, okay, well, we feel like we have to bring him in. Now you literally are checking a box instead of like doing the real investigation and figuring out, like, hey, Raheem Morris did a heck of a job in L.A. He's been a head coach before. Like, give him a shot. D'Amico Ryans, Gerard Mayo, 2 examples of ex-players like Mike Vrabel that project to be really good head coaches. I think focusing too much on Bieniemy, and I think Eric's a good coach, I think can make the problem worse.
Question about the Super Bowl. It feels like Matthew Stafford wins the Super Bowl. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame, depending on how well he plays. But it's almost like he and Phillip Rivers are similar that, although Rivers is more successful in the postseason, but they're stat guys. If Joe Burrow wins a Super Bowl, see, now all of a sudden, now you're halfway to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And you're the next Mahomes.
Right.
So what angle do you love the most?
I like the idea that Burrow, stylistically, and I covered Brady when he was young. Stylistically, he's the closest thing to Tom Brady to come into the league since Brady was young.
But more athletic.
More athletic, but the accuracy, the pocket movement, and as much as anything else, I think it's like the ability to galvanize and change a place. And this isn't the first time we've seen it either. Like, and I think I've said this to you before, but like when he was at LSU, what was LSU for all those years? Tough defense. When they were competent on an offense, and that wasn't always, it was like a Bo Schembechler, 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of offense. And he gets in there, and what happens? He changed everything, right? And so I think the same thing's happening in Cincinnati. So that's that ability to sort of galvanize an entire place and change a place, which Brady could do. And then it's in the biggest moments, flatline. Like, he's an intense competitor, but in the biggest moments when guys walk into the huddle with him, total flatline. And that's why I think in a spot like this, I mean, God, if the Bengals can just get it into the final 5 minutes of the game, I think it's tough to bet against Burrow.
I brought this up when Brady announced he was retiring, like what is next? Because these guys always got to fill that void. And I didn't know if you could see Brady owning a team. Mm-hmm. I didn't see him as a broadcaster, even though if I'm Amazon, I just throw out $25 million a year.
Yeah.
What's 25 to Amazon? What do you, having known Tom for a long time, what do you think quenches that thirst?
I think that I think he's been fearful of this for a while, like what this is going to be like, because I think he knows, as competitive as he is, there's going to be nothing that can replace what he's about to walk away from. And I think that's part of what kept him in it, to be honest with you, is like the fear of like, what's it going to be like when I don't have that outlet anymore? I do think like a big part of it for him is all this knowledge he's built up and like kind of like the proprietary advantage that he's had over everybody else. It's finding a way now to give that to other people, and I think, that's what TB12 is about. I think it wouldn't surprise me if he started helping young quarterbacks. He had people in his life that were really important in his life. Guys like, Tom Martinez, who was his private quarterback coach when he was young. Tom House, obviously more recently, that made a huge impact on him. Alex Guerrero, that I think really were game changers for him. And I think the idea that he could make a business out of being that sort of game changer, I think appeals to him, which is what TB12 was when he launched it.
Final question. Mm-hmm. Could you beat up Adam Schefter?
I got the height advantage. I got reach.
Yes, you do. It sounds like a yes to me, guys.
No comment.
Let's bring out Adam Schefter here. He comes to Glazer. You have no shot with.
Glazer be tough.
Yeah,
I have reach on him too, but I think he might have me there.
Lock and four. I'm going to take you.
Yeah, I think
you could take
that one.
How about Jeff Darlington?
Jeff's pretty. I don't know. I think Jeff's pretty. So I think all you would have to do is muddy the fight up a little bit. You know what I mean?
Thanks for all your help this year.
Absolutely.
Contributions. You always make us smarter every time you're on. You might want to thank me, too, since I had...
I said thank you.
Well, man, it didn't feel...
I said my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I mean, you could have started it by, hey, before we end this, I'd just like to say thank you for boosting my career. I mean, little things.
Thank you,
Working with a legend.
It.
I don't know. I try it. Try it again next time you're on. Hey, thank you. Have a great week.
Okay, and I'll kiss the ring after we get off the air.
Okay, that's fine. He's Albert Breer, the senior NFL reporter, lead content strategies, Monday morning. Even the backroom guys aren't really applauding here. Can we try that one more time for Albert Breer?
That's pretty good. Thanks, guys.
Applause. All right, play of the day.
Thank you, Dan.
Oh, thank you.
Dan.
You're welcome, Albert. Play of the day's up next.